All right, welcome back to another very special edition of Dr. J Radio Live. Of course, I'm your host, Dr. J, broadcasting from the city of demons. That's what I'm going to use today. Well, last time I used sheeple. It's whatever the heck you guys want it to be. And of course, as you know, I am very excited to be here today because we have another astounding show with a very, very interesting and astounding guest. He is the one and only Mr. John Desouza. First of all, let me welcome him to the show. Mr. Desouza, welcome to the show.
Dr. J, it is great to be here with you on Dr. J Radio Live.
You got it right. Now,
Yes,
let me, because I'm so excited to say this, first of all, for everybody out there, let me just say we are speaking to another person from the federal government. As you know, I love having, because I'm a son of an officer, I've had several people involved in federal law enforcement from CBP, Secret Service, NSA, FBI, DIA, and I think CIA is the only one I forgot. The point is,
no, that's okay. Forget that.
yeah, we'll forget the clowns in America. And out of all those, if everybody out recalls, we didn't get to much paranormal talk with all those federal agents. However, today's guest from the FBI is super outstanding, and I promise every single one of you will know at least part of his work, meaning that the television show X-Files, at least season 1, which we all suspected had some basis in reality, was of course based in part to the work that John Desouza did. So, Mr. Desouza, let's take you back to first talk about when you joined the FBI, what year and what were the circumstances that made you decide that's the federal government agency that you're going to join, as opposed to the clowns in America or the no such agency or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, in 1988 is when I joined the FBI as a special agent, and it was a great decision on my part. And it was based in part on something that had occurred just a short time before that. It was based on an incident that I had seen great heroism and great amazing saving of innocent life. Very popular incident that was known as the Miami shootout. And I believe it happened in 1985.
Whoa.
You can go,
Wait,
if anybody.
are you talking about the cocaine cowboy era in Miami?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, okay.
Except this was going, this area of Miami-Dade was going into experimental drugs at the time, not just the regular old cocaine. They were going into drugs like something called angel dust.
PCP, right? That's at least what I hear.
That's what it was called. It was called PCP, angel dust. Also, they called it horse tranquilizers. Although I don't know if it actually literally was horse tranquilizers. So that was what was starting to be popular in these poorer areas of Miami-Dade. And as a result, we had a couple of, and this is what was called the Miami shootout. We had a couple of bank robbers. They were kind of hillbilly bank robbers. This was, and like I said, this was the incident that inspired me to join the FBI. And we had a couple of these hillbilly bank robbers who were running around hitting all the banks. They were hitting all the banks and coming away pretty successfully. They used regular weapons, guns and shotguns, and guns of that sort, rifles of that sort. And they basically would just go in and rob the banks and get as much as they could. And they were very successful at doing this until we had a bank robbery task force that had FBI agents and police officers on it. And they accurately predicted what the next bank was these guys were going to hit. By the way, these guys were named Maddox and Platt. Maddox and Platt, that was their names. And they accurately predicted kind of what bank they were going to hit. And they had the entire task force waiting in that vicinity for these two guys. And they rolled up in an old dilapidated Chevy that they used for some of these bank robberies. They rolled up in that, and immediately the FBI task force noticed who they were and where they were. And they kind of ran them off the road ran the Maddox and Platt off the road into this parking lot, into a sort of, yeah, it was a parking lot. And they stopped they crashed their car in there. And then several other FBI vehicles converged on the spot. They all came out and they all told Maddox and Platt to surrender and put their hands up and get cuffed up because they had them. They had them dead to rights. And so Maddox and Platt did not give up. Instead, what they did was they grabbed all the weapons from from the floor of their cars, from the running boards of their car and the areas all around their cars. And they grabbed all the weapons and came out of their cars. And of course, they were immediately met with a barrage of bullets and fire from the FBI task force. And they were all shot to death, except they didn't die.
Ooh, okay. Was it bulletproof armor, or something else was the reason that they didn't die?
Well, you would think so. You would think so. However, it was later found that the only armor that Maddox and Platt had were T-shirts and flannel shirts that were flapping in the wind, and ball caps. They had ball caps on their head. That was it. That was all they had. And one of them was actually shot right through the aorta going to the heart, and severed the aorta.
And yet, generally, within 60 seconds, I would think that made the biggest artery, right? The one going in the aorta. You would be dead in 60 seconds if that was severed, right?
Yes. As a matter of fact, the scientists told us, because we do have FBI scientists, unfortunately, but they told us that, the usual estimate is 60 seconds to maybe 120 seconds of life you would have left when the aorta is severed. However, like I said, these two guys, defying all expectations, came out of their vehicles and they came out shooting. And they actually shot and shot all the FBI agents. They did a semicircle in that parking lot. And they shot all the FBI agents. There were several people who retreated. I'll just use the word retreated. They retreated far beyond the ability of Maddox and Platt to shoot them. But there were several other FBI agents who were pinned down. Some were behind cover and pinned down by Maddox and Platt, who kept on shooting relentlessly. They were changing magazines like nothing ever happened to them, even though they had both been shot fatally through several areas. And they basically executed, I believe it was 2 FBI agents, and shot the rest of them. Non-fatally through several places. And they continued to fire at one particular FBI agent who was this big burly Mexican dude. And he was pinned down, and he had actually had his right arm blown apart by a shotgun.
Oh, jeez. Wow.
So his arm was actually blown inside out. If you can imagine a shotgun piece of metal. What's that called? We have buck, and then we have the solid piece of metal. Slug.
Oh,
sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say slug. Yeah.
So he had a slug that started up at his wrist and went down all the way down to the meat of his upper arm, and basically blew that entire, like a zipper. Like an explosive zipper. It blew open his arm inside out. So it was laid out to the bone, with the meat exposed, as if a surgeon had just done that. And so that arm was completely useless. However, as Maddox and Platt were using up all their ammunition, trying to kill everyone in that parking lot, and they were mostly hitting the cars that people were using for cover. And as they were shooting, they basically finished using all their ammo, and then they got into their car. And they started their car up to get away. And as they were doing that, they were having problems because the car had taken so many bullets and shotgun shells that it actually damaged the transmission. So they were having a hard time starting the car so they could get the clean getaway. And as they were doing that, the one agent that had his arm blown up inside out, used the other arm to fill up a shotgun put 6 shells into a shotgun, and then I believe six, maybe five, if to fill up the H.R. Remington 870 shotgun, and he filled it up, and then he took his pistol also and put it in his belt, and then he jumped up in front of the car as the car was getting ready to leave the parking lot. He got up, he jumped up in front of that car, and he shot into both Maddox and Platt. He emptied the shotgun into both of them with one hand, one arm, and then the shotgun was empty. He threw it down. He took his pistol, and he finished firing, emptying the pistol into them. He had actually successfully severed the medulla, where the spine actually meets the skull, the back of the skull. Uh, and that was the only way they finally were able to kill these guys, because they wouldn't die. And he did. He severed the the spinal cord at the neck, where it meets the brain, and he did that on both of these guys, and that's what finally stopped them.
Now,
Nothing.
as they were initially receiving gunshot wounds, did the wounds themselves look and as the bullets passed through their body, did they react like another person, say any of the FBI agents that were injured from their gunfire, from Maddox and Platt's gunfire? Did they
No,
look
no,
similar, or did it just
no.
look different? Was the
They
blood
they
the same
acted like
color or
nothing.
anything like that?
They I can't speak to how much blood they put out of their wounds, but because that was never addressed by the forensic examinations that were done. But yeah, I mean they lost some blood, but they acted like they had not been shot for the most part. I mean, uh, they basically took the fire and acted like nothing had happened. So that was a very bewildering part of this story. Uh,
Did
and,
toxicology reports on them come back and say that
oh,
they were
uh,
on cocaine or
yeah, but
start?
it didn't matter.
Mhm.
That didn't really matter, because even before even before that occurred, you're probably familiar with a term known as fake news.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
there was when that occurred, and we had several FBI agents killed and terribly, terribly injured. There was a huge amount of political pressure to find out how these guys had done this. Now, as I told you at the beginning, this was a neighborhood that was known for PCP. So the uh, the FBI people involved, probably the higher ups, I would say, uh, basically made up a narrative that these guys were on PCP horse tranquilizers.
Hmm.
They were both loaded to the gills with horse tranquilizer PCP angel dust, and that was most likely the only way that these guys were able to do what they did, and that this would be further proven by toxicology tests, which take a little more time. That's going to take that would take a few weeks at least to come back. So they just created that narrative, and then the mainstream media ran with that. The news put that everywhere. They put, oh, these two guys were able to do superhuman feats of strength and stamina because they were loaded with PCP, with angel dust. That's the only way this is humanly possible, because they didn't have any body armor. This is the only answer. It's the only way, and this will be proven. And that basically all the newspapers ran with that narrative at that time. Now, then the toxicology test came back.
Hmm.
And the toxicology test came back, and they showed that Maddox and Platt had absolutely nothing in their system.
Okay.
They hadn't even drunk a beer before they launched their latest bank robbery.
Wow.
They had a little bit of tobacco, a little bit of nicotine from cigarettes. That was about it. They
That
had
would not be responsible for them living beyond of what would normally. Now, if it would been like, for instance, PCP, I've heard of people who were able to say punch through a windshield of a car, break
right.
their hand, and a lot of other bones in their arm, never feel anything. I've heard of things, people like getting shot a few times, and until they lose enough blood to actually collapse, they're still up. But this, if they have nothing in their system other than some nicotine, that right there is shocking to me. Now, I'm going to ask you one, which is actually two questions. Both, what was your own opinion of what these people, if they were people, were? And then what did the FBI conclude behind closed doors what they were?
Behind closed doors, what the FBI concluded was that they would completely ignore what occurred with Maddox and Platt, and they would basically focus on the heroism of that one agent that was finally able to bring them down and kill them. And that's what they did. They basically just pumped up that narrative of this one agent being a great example of the great heroism of the FBI, and rightly so. They were right about that, absolutely. But they basically, despite a great deal of political pressure to come up with an answer, they basically just kind of ignored it and just kind of buried the whole thing about how Maddox and Platt were able to do what they did. They just came up with some alternate explanations. They had some FBI scientists give some garbage about how adrenaline can sometimes some people have greater amounts of adrenaline than others, and they're able to create adrenaline rushes that give them great feats of strength, stuff like that. And it was just a bunch of nonsense. So that's what they did, and I was despite how much I was impressed by this incident when it occurred, and it actually motivated me to join the FBI in 1988. I was definitely, I knew even as an amateur investigator that this was nonsense, that the real story behind Maddox and Platt was something else. So when I got to the FBI Academy, I was accepted and I went. I was an attorney. I was an attorney who was accepted to the special agent position.
So you're a fellow JD.
Yes.
Amen. Dr. D.
JD,
Yeah.
Juris Doctor.
That's what I am, yeah.
Yeah. And so I went to the FBI. I went to the academy. And when I got to the academy, there were some deputies there who had actually worked the case, had actually worked the Maddox and Platt case. And I actually had a series of questions for them. And I did ask them the questions about the Maddox and Platt case. And they were able to tell me that they were sent to the residences of Maddox and Platt to search for PCP or some other drugs that would explain.
Which is kind of fruitless, because if they didn't have it in their system, then what would it matter if it's at their house? I mean, what are they going to convict them for selling drugs after they're dead? I mean, it kind of seems like a waste, unless that was the cover to get in their homes to see something else.
Could have been. It could have been. And also, they could always just say that the first series of testing just didn't catch it, and that now we know that they probably did have this stuff in the system, and they could fabricate just about anything if they really put their minds to it. So, but what these deputies said to me that was very interesting was that they said the only thing that was odd that they found in the homes of these guys was they found these little altars that were Odinist altars to Norse gods, and that they had some incense in there that they had burned, and it looked like the incense had been burned, and they had runes like Nordic runes and stuff like that, and it made it look like they had actually done some kind of sacrifice incense just before they went out for the last bank robbery, and the timing just lined up with that. And that they told me that's the only odd thing that they found. And so, and they actually gave me the names of the Norse gods, I guess, that were appearing there in that altar. And and one of them was Loki. Loki,
Loki, the trickster.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So basically, I told those deputies, I said, that's it. I said, that's how they did what they did. Something came through to them when they were doing these rituals to these Norse gods, and they got some people tell me, oh, it was a berserker spirit. People who know a lot about Norse mythology, they know more than I do. And they told me, well, they got some kind of berserker spirit that came through. Other people tell me they got something from Loki, the trickster god, that was able to give them this superhuman ability to do what they did. But in any case, I believe that altar was the source of what they were able to do, regardless of how it came through. And so I told the deputies about that, and they were very interested in that. And then shortly after that, I was I was called in by the boss of our of our class
Hmm.
there at the FBI, because wouldn't you know it, the boss of our FBI Academy class was the one FBI agent whose legacy had to be protected at all costs, who was the individual who actually shot down Maddox and Platt before they could kill anybody else. And so he was told everything about my conversation with these deputies, and he now believed that I was a New York Times reporter, undercover
Oh, yeah, that's what he.
at the FBI Academy. He told me he believed that, and he told me he was going to make sure I never graduate from this academy. He was very, very upset. He was very upset, as people who are great idols tend to get when you disrupt, when you threaten. They perceive that their legacy is being threatened. And so I went through a very difficult time at my FBI Academy after that. And I was told by the higher ups I would never graduate from there. And however, I was able to do some quick thinking on my feet, and I was able to actually graduate from there. And he was quite upset when he had to give me my credentials.
I would imagine so.
Graduation. He was not happy at all. And as a matter of fact, he when I got stationed in the field, he actually called up my first office and he said to them, there's something wrong with this guy. He seems to like paranormal cases. So make sure that you give him plenty of paranormal cases and give them to him, whether they're from your office or from other offices around the FBI. And we'll see how much he enjoys that.
So, would you say that? Well, clearly, it sounds like it was a sort of a. I don't want to say task force quite, but I mean, unless that's what it was. But it sounds like it was geared toward because of what you had experienced in Miami with that shootout with Maddox and Platt. Let me write. Is it Platt, right? Maddox and Platt.
Yeah,
Not,
that's right.
and not to mention the fact that you obviously showed interest, which is what they picked up. So, were you working alone on these paranormal cases, or did they actually have a team of you?
No, It was, for the most part, it was me alone. And by the way, I never worked the Maddox and Platt case in Miami-Dade. I just it was just that was an incident that occurred before I that inspired me to join the FBI.
Gotcha.
And then when I went into the field and did receive some paranormal cases, yeah, for the most part, I worked those things alone. For the most part, but I often worked them with other agents as well.
So you
So
really were the real Fox Mulder in this, literally.
pretty much, pretty much, and it was something that it was not a source of pride. It was not a source of pride or anything of that sort. It was something you were supposed to be ashamed of and kind of try to keep hidden. And that's why a lot of the cases were OTB. They were off the books. They were things that other law enforcement officials don't like to deal with either, or politicians. They didn't like dealing with these sorts of things either. And so that's why a lot of these things were OTB. They were off the books.
Once you were in the FBI and they essentially were assigning to you the paranormal cases that you kept off the books, what was the first major paranormal case you ended up researching or investigating?
Um, they were the cases. Well, let me put it this way: they were the cases that you see in the first season of X Files. Those were the cases because those were the cases that went into my OTB book, and those were the cases that I was not supposed to talk about, but because Chris Carter put them into the X Files as fiction, he was able to talk about them. He was able to expose what happened in those cases and what occurred during that first season, and then and those cases basically had been taken from me from my OTB book where I would take notes and write everything that occurred, and that OTB book was taken by some FBI agents who were retiring to Los Angeles to consult with television shows, and they were able to share some of my stuff there. And so what occurred after the first season of the X-Files in 93, this was 1993. So what occurred, and Chris Carter talks about this today, was that my bosses recognized my cases at the first season of the X-Files.
Wow.
I'll say it that way. And so they recognized my cases, and they were extremely upset, and they were also looking to punish me because it's always you always suspect whoever's on the scene, and so they were ready to punish me for it. And I was able to tell them I did not give any information directly to Chris Carter at all. I never did. And so they called up Chris Carter. They got him and they told him that they were gonna stop his show, put a stop to his show.
The FBI threatened him, really, to stop his show. Wow.
Yes, they did. They told him that he was obviously getting information from somewhere that he's not supposed to, and that they know about it, of course, and they were going to shut down his show, and he would not be allowed to have his show on the air anymore. And Chris Carter was very cooperative with them. He told them, hey, if I got something I'm not supposed to get, then I want to help you guys. Just tell me the details of the cases that you're talking about. Tell me, what cases you're talking about, during season 1, and and I will track down. I'll track down what's going on, what's happening with all this, and then they questioned him about if any FBI agents who were currently on duty, because I was there, they were talking about me, had given him the information for the first season of the X-Files, and he was able to say absolutely not, and I was able to say the same exact thing, that I was not in any form giving him information for this first season of the X-Files. And so they basically told Chris Carter, okay, then we can't really give Chris Carter any more information to do a cross check. So we'll just call it a day there. We'll all go back to our corners, and you can just continue with your show. That's it. And that was it. After that, and unfortunately, the FBI knew that I had been called in for that. And as a result, they started calling me the X-Files guy, X-Files man, or
wow.
X-Man for short.
Agent X, or that too? Is that? I think I've read something referring to you as Agent X. Is that correct?
What I see everywhere is John Desouza, the X-Man.
Literally, instead of Stan. God, why am I blanking on the name? Instead of Marvel's, why is Stanley's last name? Anyway, you are the real X-Men as opposed to the Marvel's X-Men. Anyhow, I think this is an important detail that we need to tell the people that are paying attention to this interview. You kept a journal off the books detailing each of these cases that you investigated in the paranormal field, right?
Yes, most of them, yes.
And that was it lost by you or misplaced? But regardless, did that not end up in Chris Carter's hands?
I believe it did, yes.
And what are the circumstances around you realizing it's gone or losing it?
Uh, I just had, I was not very happy, but I knew right away what had happened.
Someone stole
Because
it, or is it just that you miss?
yes, yes,
Oh,
it was taken by a couple of retired agents who just went to Los Angeles to consult with television shows.
so okay, because they were consulting with television shows, they took your paranormal off the books journal of real cases that you were
Yes,
investigating and
yes,
ended up giving it to Chris Carter, I'm assuming, so they could also get paid on the extra for being consultants on X Files.
yes, exactly.
Wow, wow.
That's exactly what I believe happened, and that's what it looks like to me, especially from when I look at the first season of the X Files and see that, see what happened there and what details they used. It was like a very embarrassing biography of my life, because if you look at all those episodes in the first season, they were they were they did not put me or the agent in a good light. And they were highly embarrassing at that time. So that's basically all I felt. But I mean, after the first season was over, they went on to the other seasons. They used other materials too, for the most part. They still use some things from my book as well.
Here's a question in the chat that I'm going to ask because it's related to what we're talking about. Normally, I reserve the last 30 minutes or so, and since I told you an hour to an hour and a half, we're definitely going to go towards the hour and a half so far based on this, and maybe a
That's
little
good.
longer, but we'll take it by the time. Okay, this is from Hypnotic Eyes, and it says, if it was that important, how did it get stolen so easy?
that's 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 a good question. Well, here's let me tell you something about FBI agents and people who work intelligence in general. They tend to believe that wherever they are tends to wherever they're working tends to be a secure space. Let's put it that way, a secure space, because they tend to believe that the people in their own organization are trustworthy. So that's how it got stolen, because I was silly enough at that time. I was relatively new to the FBI at that time, and I was foolish enough to believe that all FBI personnel could be trusted. Let's put it that way.
And you know what? And sadly, that's generally what we were all taught up is, I would think if someone's from the FBI, CIA, or LAPD, I was raised to trust them and believe them. But as
Oh,
we've all known, that is not necessarily the truth. As a matter of fact, after we're done, I'll even tell you some people who we know in common, which clearly have found out to be not trustworthy. But that's a different
oh,
angle. Let me throw a quick shout out here to Pyramid 7. Pyramid, thank you for your super chat and your support. And thank you for saying it's a great show. And I will pass on the message to Mr. Desouza. Pyramid 7 wants to
nice.
say hello to you. Uh,
Yes.
okay, now, because I could only pull up right now in front of me the actual episode list of season one. Oh, there's another super chat, and that is my dear friend Rockstar. Rockstar, I want to
All
thank
right.
you as well for the super chat and also for showing me some amazing footage. Rockstar, for everyone out there, has been showing me great footage of what I think are legit portals, which are going to do a show about that coming soon,
Dude,
everybody.
call
So
me for that show because portals are part of my thing.
oh, well, hell, you know what? After we get through some of this, we could actually talk about a little bit of that. And after we finish, I will talk to you about bringing you on for that day because I think you would be a great asset considering of your experience literally investigating paranormal, including things like the portals, which interest you, and you have a lot of credibility in this. So I think that would be fantastic to have you involved when we do a show on that. Now,
Abs-
because I'm able to only look at the title of the episodes, if I'm not mistaken, there was an episode, I believe it to be season one, where there is a live alien captured, and at the very end, Mulder, It's like I want to say it's in this. I don't know. I'm just guessing dimensions here. 10 by 10, like a metal sort of room within like a gym area, and just as Mulder is going to go up to look at the window in the door to look at the alien, the smoking man, the cigarette smoking man, stops him. Again, I don't know the name of that episode. It had been decades since I seen it. But was that season one where there?
Yeah, that's the Erlingmeyer flask.
Okay, now can you tell us how that case played out in reality? What year?
Uh,
All that? Where? Look in the
well,
world.
I'm not telling you how it played out in reality. What I'll tell you is what happened in the show episode that was real.
Okay.
Uh, there's a difference.
Yeah,
It may
of
not sound
course.
like there's a difference, but there is.
One's Hollywoodized, one's reality.
And also, one doesn't violate my NDA,
Ah,
my
yes.
non-disclosure agreement, and the other one does not. So here's what was here's what was real in the show, from the show. Uh, there was an actual container that was given to us, given to me from a very famous scientist who had worked with Area 51, I believe it's called.
Are you
Uh,
talking about Bob Lazar?
no,
Okay.
I am not. I'm talking about, actually, I'm talking about another person who is a very famous person, Boyd Bushman.
Yes, yes, that was the second person I was thinking of. It's ironic because some people wanted to, debunk him, but my personal opinion is if someone's about to die, are they really going to show you pictures of hoaxes or anything like that and come up with this elaborate story when they are literally among their deathbed? And just to clear this up, and John, you know this as well as I do because you're an attorney. Most people don't understand deathbed confessions. When a dying declaration is said,
Mhm.
people cannot just assume that's the truth because dying declarations are only admissible in court if they have to go with regards of how the death is occurring. For instance, if you're shot right before you pass away, paramedics come and they say, DJ shot me. That is admissible as a dying declaration. If, as you're shot and the paramedics are working on you, right before you slip away, you say the moon is made of cheese and the world is flat, sorry, folks, that does not count as a dying declaration. So I just wanted to clear that out there because other people assumed that it all is dying declaration. No, but I do stand by that if you're about to die, are you really going to show something that is not true? Now, the other question is did Boyd Bushman believe it to be true, but it actually was false what he was showing? I mean, that is up for debate, but I don't think personally he would create this elaborate lie. And I personally think Boyd Bushman did work at Area 51, if not in S4. So, anyhow, I
So
didn't
do I.
mean to interrupt. Yeah, perfect. So, we're both on the same page as that. And he did produce some really astounding photos. So, go on and tell us now before I cut you off to where we were with regards to you telling us about Boyd Bushman.
So this individual was able to give us a container that looked similar to the one that was shown on the show, and it was containing. It had an ink-like consistency to it, so I couldn't really see inside of it. I couldn't really see what was inside of it. It appeared to be something that would be the size of a small. It could have been like a fetus. Let's put it that way. It could have been the size of a small fetus, uh, and and he actually told us that it was an alien artifact that would change the history of the world.
Ooh, okay. I'm thinking Project Yellow Book or something like that, or maybe something that can show us how anti gravity can be done. Can you say it without violating the NDA?
Uh, Say what?
What it was that would have changed our literally everything we can do on this planet with that
Well,
technology?
all I can say is that I do believe him what he told me at that time, that it was an alien artifact because I could not see for sure, and I definitely had no ability to open it. So, not that I would anyway, but I was told it was very important evidence, and we were going to transport it to our FBI headquarters, and that's what we did.
So now, that episode was is partly based on what you did. Was there a live extraterrestrial that you could tell us, or was that part of the fictionalized part that Chris Carter made?
I was told later that there was. I was told later that there was, uh, and uh, that came from a couple of different sources. But like I said, I was not able to myself be able to look inside of that thing and be able to know exactly what we had.
Wow. And can you tell us where this location was, or is that restricted?
The location
Yeah.
of what?
Of where that being was held, or was it at S4 or Area
Uh,
51?
yes, I was told it came out of that S4 area.
Now, I'm assuming as a member of the FBI, you had no access to Area 51, even though you were investigating paranormal, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, I know a story that Eisenhower, I believe it was 54 or maybe after. I think it was 54 because he was after he was president. He was denied access into Area 51, and he even threatened to bring in, I forget which brigade involved. The infantry group that it had the tanks, but essentially threatened to invade Area 51 if they wouldn't let him in. And I don't know what the outcome of it was, except that we know there wasn't a war on American soil between troops in the army and, of course, whoever's guarding the S4 and the whole Area 51 proper facility. And not just that, Area 51, 52, 54, and basically the whole Nevada test site. Now, let's go through some other cases. I have the episode list. Actually, I'll just ask you, based on your memory. It doesn't even you don't have to say the names of the episodes, but tell us a couple more that stick out in your head of other types of paranormal cases before we come back to some more UFO cases that you investigated. So, aside from the one we just talked about involving Boyd Bishman, which is one of your favorite that you wrote about that ended up being adapted into X Files season one?
Well, favorites in terms of favorites in terms of something that I actually liked.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I
Yeah.
actually liked.
Like the crazy
Um,
paranormal, like the two Pine Miami guys,
yeah,
Maddox and Platt, the people that just wouldn't die and possibly had
yeah,
something
yeah.
else going on.
I would say it's the one about I would say it's the one about Mr. Graves, um, where they actually dealt with a serial killer that we had dealt with, who was a very malevolent individual who had really strange signatures for killing people. And we were able to, at one point, and they basically took this pretty small incident that occurred with our task force and was ultimately labeled paranormal. Uh, but there could have been some argument as to whether it was or not. And basically it was a serial killer who always had a special way of killing people and then removing an organ from their bodies. And we never knew what he did with those organs. As a matter of fact, we never did catch him. We never did catch him. And he basically he was being chased by our task force through a building. And he basically went into a locked room, and he had no other way out of that because the window was sealed. The window was sealed to the outside, and the only thing that occurred in that room, but he disappeared. He absolutely disappeared. And I think in the show they call him Mr. Toombs.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly.
Yeah,
You're right.
yeah,
TOOMS. That's what they labeled him as.
right. And it was, and what we found in that room ultimately was just a grating that that had that was just, it was too small for a human being. Basically, it was a grate, and the grate had what I call ectoplasm all over it. This sort of horrible mucousy sort of material, and I touched some of it and I went through it, and it was disgusting. And so they so we started saying that he went through that grate somehow. Well, the only way he could have gone through that grate was if he was some kind of shapeshifter and was able to make himself into what, a snake, maybe some kind of a snake, and go through that. And so that was just put down as undetermined. And then later we found out that the murders that he had done, they just they just stopped. They just stopped. And we did some research and showed that very similar murders. The thing about serial killers is that they have their own unique signatures. And so if you want to research what a serial killer is up to, all you have to do is go through the newspapers and look for his signature. And it looked like this particular murderer had killed people like every 30 years and then would stop and then would start again.
Wow.
And throughout the history, going even into ancient history, because we had to research the microfiche as well, into going into the old days, and I've done that several times, more than once, with other paranormal phenomena as well.
Now, like literally, this person pulled a Houdini and just was gone.
Well, not literally, because there had to be some physical way that he got out of that room, and the only way that I could see was through that grate where he had left that horrible ectoplasm. And so that's why my final determination was, if you eliminate everything else. I mean, the only explanation is impossible, and yet it appeared to be that that's what happened, that he somehow changed his shape and went through that grate, I should say.
Wow.
And that was the
So
only conclusion
literally,
to
this
make.
person was a shapeshifter in essence. That's
Yeah,
what we're describing in modern terms.
yeah,
I literally, if I had to go investigate that, I can't imagine what I would think after I realized, okay, there's a grate, that's where you went, and seeing like ectoplasm or anything like that, I would definitely, my mind would be in another dimension. Let's just say that.
yeah, yeah. And that's the way it is. And it's not fun. It's not fun for a person in law enforcement to have to be coming to these conclusions and then try to share those conclusions at law enforcement. So at least in the first season of the X-Files, they really captured that aspect of it, the aspect of how difficult it is to be that spooky Mulder who gets that reputation for believing in way out stuff, and trying to share these conclusions and being told there's no way you can share that stuff. You cannot send that back to headquarters. There's no way. We will not sign that out. We will not sign that piece of paper to send that to Washington. No way. So that spirit of it, they really did capture that perfectly in the first season of the X-Files.
I want to throw a shout out to Alex Oyen. Thank you, Alex, for your super chat and, of course, support keeping this channel alive. And, of course, for everything you've shared with me off the air and motivation. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Alex. And for everybody else that's shown support and is here in the chat room. As a matter of fact, I also see Third Phase of Moon. Blake and Brent, straight from Hawaii.
Right.
Yeah,
Those are
my
the guys.
mentors, great friends, and literally now that we are in 2021, it's 9 years this month that I really was paying attention to their video. And after I saw that Robert Bingham video when he was going to do the live UFO summoning, which was May 2012, that will be the 9 years from when I started working with them. So they got a question for you, and it says, word for word, I'm going to read it to you. Can you ask John if he expects any hard evidence coming from a government that they're in possession of an alien body? Good question.
Alien
Yeah.
body. Um, are they talking about the 6 month count? In your opinion, are they talking about the 6 month countdown that came out supposedly?
Not quite. I think in general, like for instance, you just talked about that episode where that alien was,
Right.
being held at S4.
Right.
Is there anything like? Do you you know what? Whether it's going to come out from now until June or in general, what's your opinion of? Do you think that they're ever going to show us any evidence that they do have an alien in their possession still?
Mm, Not really. I don't believe that they will. Uh, but if they do, if they do show an alien body, it will basically be a lie. It will basically be a lie, and I'll explain why. I wrote an entire book called The Extra Dimensionals, and the reason I wrote that book was to put forward my understanding after having worked all these cases that alien visitors appear, according to evidence, they appear not to be physical, really, not to be physical. They are actually, for the most part, non-physical, and they sometimes have helped to create these crashes like Roswell, and they have created these Roswell crashes sometimes for purposes of passing on technology, and for purposes of passing on these hybrid bodies also that they create. So that's why I say, and these hybrid bodies are created by them to give us a hope that they are physical as well. That's part of what they do, and they have very good reasons for doing that, and that's why I say it will be a lie.
I'm actually really glad that you brought up the fact that crashes like Roswell and other crashes were essentially to give us technology, because I first heard Whitley Strieber talk about this, then George Knapp, and then recently my dear friend and former co-host from years ago, Preston Dennett, which everyone here knows, that essentially the reason why after there is a crash they don't come back and pick it up is so they can sort of leave us technology the same way we leave like a pickaxe for that last Amazonian where all his tribe is left but him. We leave it in his trail so he can to help him along, as if they want us to speed up our technological advances. And also when you talked about the fact that they are not really here like interdimensionally, I've heard a lot from contactees and abductees that they may be 80% in another dimension and 20% here, which is why you could literally see through them. Is that what you're
That's a
sort of
good way.
implying?
That's a very good way of describing it. That's a very good way of describing it. Yeah, because I sometimes have a hard time articulating to people what the reality of this is, and because the reality of all this is portals and non-physicality of alien visitors, and even the non-physicality of genuine UFOs. That's another reason why we know that genuine UFOs do not crash. They don't just crash. They're not, because alien visitors are not like us. They don't just lock themselves into these tin cans and then just sail across the galaxy. That's something that humans would do.
Yeah.
And it's not what alien visitors do. And the first place that I learned that is the case is from an FBI document that is very well known. That is very well known in these circles, and it became much even more popular after I wrote my book, The Extra Dimensionals.
Before I get to a couple more questions from Third Phase of Moon, are you talking about the document that was, I don't know who the author was, but it was given to, the receiver was Hoover, J. Edgar Hoover, and I think it referred to four crashes, one in San Antonio in 1945 of May, and then the three different sites in Roswell. Is that the one you're referring to, or is it another
No,
one?
no, it is not. I am talking about the smoking gun document. The smoking gun document, which came out right about the time that Roswell happened. And it was a document that was written by an FBI agent who has, and this is why this is such a hidden document that people don't want. Well, at least the powers that be do not want us to look at this document at all. And so Roswell had incredible timing when the Roswell crash happened, because it happened just at the time that this FBI agent released this. It's called a Memorandum of Importance, dated July 8th, 1947.
Oh,
And
literally
it,
the day after, or I think that was the day of the newspaper that said from the Roswell Daily Record that they captured a flying saucer. Right?
yes,
Wow.
yes,
Okay.
yes. And one of the reasons that the distraction was made so big from this document, because, I mean, just imagine it. What would be in the news if an FBI agent releases the news that he has an informant who is an alien visitor,
Ha!
who is an alien visitor, and that this informant has given him has given him about 8 conclusions that are true, that he is giving to him right at that moment so that he can publish it to the world. And that's what the smoking gun is. It's called a Memorandum of Importance, and it is shocking document, and it is the one that says to us, it says that his informant told him, his informant is what was the word that he uses? His informant is, no, he didn't say paranormal. He said supernormal. That's it. He said his informant is a supernormal creature. And old supernormal is just an old-fashioned way of saying paranormal. And he says, for this reason, and this FBI agent was a scientist himself, as some FBI agents are. And so he was writing this to the scientific community because in 1947, scientific community was asking everybody, what's going on with all these UFOs? Apparently there was a huge wave of UFOs across the world in 1947, not just Roswell. So he said, I have an informant who is supernormal and who has given me this information. He says, alien visitors are here on a peaceful mission. They are basically trying to find out. They are human-like, but they can appear much larger in size. And there's things like, he's referring to shapeshifting, but in the language of the time, this is the best way he could describe it. He also says UFOs don't have anyone inside of them. They are actually
Drones, right?
remote. Yeah, he says remote control. But I have come to believe that genuine UFOs are possibly alive in some sense as well. And he also says basically that alien visitors, true alien visitors and true UFOs are not from our physical universe. They are coming here from other dimensions. They are not physical. They are not physical. That's the biggest revelation he has in this one-page document. And he says they possibly can achieve physicality or appear to be physical for short periods of time, but they cannot remain so. And they ultimately disappear back to their own dimension of space. They come from a different locus, different level of existence, different dimension. And he says these things and many others. He also says, do not challenge these UFOs, because if you do, the results will be very embarrassing to you, basically. And he says this and several other things. However, in 1952, just a couple of years later, we see that the entire United States Air Force challenged a bunch of UFOs over Washington, D.C.
Is that
And
why they flew over the Capitol building twice in a week?
at that time. Yeah, at that time in 1952. Yeah, they had, but this incident occurred in 1952 over 14 days, and it was many UFOs that sailed over the Capitol building and that part of Washington D.C. And the U.S. Air Force was sent out after them, and just what it says in this document happened. What this document said would happen did happen. The entire U.S. Air Force was terribly embarrassed by these UFOs that did side by sides with them, did loop de loops around them, did backwards accompaniment with them, and just a terrible embarrassment to the United States Air Force that was documented and was actually reported by the general the commission report that occurred after this. They actually admitted all these things happened, and that was the last time that an entire Air Force was sent out after UFOs. Never happened again after 1952, what occurred in Washington, D.C.
Not to mention, after the order to shoot them down and we lost a lot of planes and pilots, I would think then it was kind of fruitless to try to even engage in these craft. Anyhow, let me get to the other questions that Third Phase of Moon has asked here, and whatever else questions people in the chat. Okay. Again from Blake and Brent, Third Phase of Moon. Any government in particular might reveal or disclose, and this is in reference to this countdown.
Any government
Yeah.
around the world?
Yeah.
Well, I see things. I see things revealed in Japan all the time. And this occurs on a regular basis. As a matter of fact, I've been spending some time with them because they are revealing things all the time from both from the people and from their government. And I find it a lot. I find that stuff a lot more credible than the stuff I see coming out of the United States, because unfortunately the United States is in the grip of this group that is pushing this what we call fake alien disclosure, and it is not real. It is based on false facts, but they have the media on their side. So for that reason, people pay great attention to it, and it's very unfortunate. So we need people to be able to intervene and to investigate these things and be able to tell people what's really going on.
Well, thankfully, there are people like us and Third Phase of Moon and our Jaime Masan who works with us, which hopefully we are making a dent, but it would be nice if we had the mainstream media. I have
Yes.
one more message to pass to you from Third Phase of Moon, which I know you're going to like to hear, which is tell John we would love to have him on the team and come on board anytime. So, yes, please join me with Third Phase of Moon, and we will do far more than tonight. And
Oh, that'd be awesome.
yeah, as I even told you prior to, I know this was going to be a fun interview. So this is not the only one we will have. Now, there was a question. Let me find it back because I do not want to lose that question. It was some good one. I could actually ask you the question, and hopefully the person who wrote it. Okay, well, no, it wasn't Johnny Vegas. He actually responded. Andy Cowley asks, "Are there men in black?"
Yes, absolutely there are.
In
There
your
definitely are.
opinion, are they humans that are trying to cover this up, or as some people suggest, that they are ETs or ultra beings or another from another dimension or wherever they come from that are projecting the image of being human? And some people go as far as to say is that they are wearing human skin to the point
Yeah.
where their eyes are bigger, they have no eyelashes, no eyebrows, no hair, anything like that. And so I've heard that both ways. So what's your opinion? Are they a part of the federal government that is there to silence us, or are they
No,
literally they're not us?
not at all. No, they are. I believe they are in some way they are working um, with what we call the cabal, the uh, the powers that believe that they are ruling the earth, and they are in an uneasy alliance kind of with malevolent alien visitors, and so they have these men in black who are out there to collect any hint of alien technology or alien artifacts whatsoever, and to erase the memory of that from any humans that have them at all. And they are they appear to me, I mean, from the encounters that I've had, uh, they appear to me to be some sort of reanimated corpses.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. That's one of the. At least Dan Burrish and his wife did say that they seem to literally be wearing the bodies like you would wear clothes of
yeah,
dead people.
yeah, yeah. And they appear to be giving off radiation of some kind as well. So you cannot be exposed to them for very long, or you'll get really sick.
Wow. Now, one interesting thing I've heard from people who have actually seen the Men in Black, and specifically the cars that they drive, not one person who has seen that black sedan that they have can recognize what car it is. It's almost as if it does not exist on this planet outside of them driving it. It's not a Ford, it's not a Chevy, it's not a Lamborghini, it's not a Lincoln, but it's something that literally cannot be not defined but recognized as anything on this planet.
Well, yeah, but that's not a problem of the car itself. That's a problem of memory. It's this ability that they have to erase erase memories, and to fog up memories. And apparently, they have that ability, and alien visitors have that ability also. Apparently, that's what erases the car type and erases other stuff as well.
Now, I'm sure you heard of General Ished's announcement, the former Israeli, I guess you want to say, leader of the space program of Israel for about 30 years,
Mhm.
retired professor who in December said that essentially extraterrestrials are real, that and Trump was on the verge of announcing that we are not alone and that they are non human, I guess you want to say ultra dimensional, whatever they are, non humans working with American astronauts in a base underground in Mars, and that this was no joke. And when he refers to aliens, he's not talking about migrants from another country, but actual, literally non terrestrials. Did you hear that statement when he made it?
Yes, yes, I did.
And what was your opinion? Because obviously, from what I gather, this guy's not senile. A good
Yeah.
friend of mine, Jeremy Kenyon Lockyer Corbell, who everybody probably knows now, who made the Bob Lazar documentary, Bob Lazar Flying Saucers, or Bob Lazar Area 51 and Flying Saucers. He interviewed the person who interviewed Ished, since Ished doesn't speak English, just Hebrew, and was able to confirm everything that I just said, that Ished was referring to extraterrestrials. So if Ished said this 5 years ago, it would have been laughed at. It would have been a National Enquirer, or if the World
Hmm.
Weekly World News was still around,
Right,
that's where it appeared. But no,
right.
this made it the world over. You saw it on
Yeah.
every major network and every newspaper because it touched the pulse of people. And that was one of the reasons I thought, okay, in December 2017, you had the Navy footage first leaked before 4 years, 3 years later, they confirm it. And I think we're living in a new era. Personally, to me, after I first saw the Navy DoD footage of the Tic Tac gimbal and Go Fast, I thought that was the closest to disclosure we were going to get. Now, in light of that, do you think that by the end of this 180-day period, which will be June, we are actually going to see more videos and possibly some ETs that you said it's going to be alive, whatever they show us, or are we just
Yeah.
going to get more BS, old documents, maybe some photos from the 50s, which we assumed exist but aren't really there? I mean, have you ever heard of when Gordon Cooper was, I believe, at Homestead Air Force Base or one of those bases, and he filmed a flying saucer land, and he never got to see the film projected, but as he developed the film, he held it up and was able to see it before it was shipped off to DC and never seen again. Do you think we're going to actually see videos like that, or in your personal opinion, what are we going to see by the end of June and in July?
I think it's very possible that they will bring out these these alien hybrid bodies that that same similar to the ones that came out of Roswell crash, and they'll probably see and we may see genuine looking UFOs as well, and some kind of attempt to put forward this sort of fake disclosure that they're working on so hard right now. That's what I believe. I believe we'll see it. We'll see it all, basically. Uh, we'll see it all. But again, but it will be a lie because this disclosure is being done by the cabal and their allies in the malevolent alien visitors that work with the cabal.
The deep state cabal. That's what I think
Yes.
of when I hear them.
Yes. If well, what I think of is the smoking man, who was a character that I lived with
Yeah,
at,
the
at the
cigarette
government.
smoking man in X Files.
Yes, and so for me, the smoking man, who's I call him Milsud in my materials, and the cabal is basically him times 100, and that's who they are, and they want to control everything, and they work with the malevolent alien visitors who are against us and who are trying to fool us and who show us these hybrid bodies and say, yeah, there you go. Alien visitors are physical. Yeah, here's a crashed UFO. See, we're just like you. Aliens are just like you. They put themselves in tin cans and tin cans just crash. There you go. That's what they do.
Here is another question, and I'm going to read it, and I'm going to give you a little backstory of my part about it, and then I'm going to get your opinion. If I need to read it again, I will. Okay, this is from Eddie Gomez. I guess I could tell you about my part before I ask it. He's going to ask about Richard Doty. Now, real quick, are you familiar with Richard Doty is?
It's a name I've heard a lot.
Okay. He was in the Air Force Office of Special Investigation. The documentary Mirageman was based on him. He basically was leading in the disinformation with regards to ETs. Now, when I interviewed him, a couple things that I was able to get from him was that there was an actual extraterrestrial event that happened at Kirkland Air Force Base in the early 80s. And since he was Air Force of Special Investigations, him and about 20 or so other members that were in his group were flown to Area 51 and given shown a 20-minute briefing by a full bird colonel, and they saw footage going back to the 40s all the way up to the 60s, which showed bodies, living, dead, craft, and then after they had about 45 minutes Q&A before they were brought back to Kirkland Air Force Base. During that interview, he did say that about a minute of that 20-minute footage that he was shown at Area 51 was released, and it shows ETs. I said during the interview, are you referring to the Skinny Bob footage? He says, I don't know, I'd have to see it. After the interview, I texted to him while we were still talking. He saw it and said, yes, this is it, except some of it was like the human in it was cropped out of one of the images. For those of you who are wondering what the Skinny Bob footage is, it's what you're seeing right now as I am playing it. So he was able to confirm that that was real, and because I had already shown that same footage to ton of people who have had abductions or contacts and said, if there's any footage of ETs that look similar to the ones that you interacted with, what would it be? Skinny Bob, I've heard from 6 different people. So to me, the fact that I had confirmation on both sides is why I give a lot of credit to Richard Doty, even though he admitted to being part of the disinformation while he was in the Air Force Office of Special Investigation. So that is my history with Richard Doty. That's my opinion, and now you know who he is. The question is from Eddie Gomez. What does John think of Richard Doty's interviews that he has been doing on Gaia lately? Is it pure disinformation?
I would not say pure disinformation. Uh, even people who are assigned to give disinformation tend to use items that are true, items that are real, and then they'll mix their own material into it. And I don't want to specify anyone in particular, but yeah, I believe that whatever information Richard Doty gives, it probably has items of truth in it, no matter what. Like the Skinny Bob, the Skinny Bob videos, which appear like a big likelihood of authenticity just from having seen it. And so, but then they'll mix in their own agenda into it and put it forward that way.
And by doing something like that, this is the best way I was able to describe disinformation to people, is you take a big truth and surround it by a bunch of little lies, or you take the inverse, take a giant lie and surround it by a bunch of little truths and spit it out that way. Yeah. And that works, right? That's what they essentially do, because if it has some truth to it, then they could, because the lies are associated, then they just discredit it in full. Isn't that how agencies work?
Yes, that's how they work, and it works very well on the public, so that when you have the cabal, let's say the deep state, has something that they want to really, really cover up. Like, let's say, secret space program. Let's say that, just as an example. So what will they do to cover it up? Well, they'll come up with these individuals who claim to be whistleblowers from the secret space program, and they'll have some real items of truth in everything that they say, but they'll be making up a bunch of garbage along with it. So now you have all these people who are out there talking about secret space program and covering it with a lot of sewage as well, and that people know is not true. So what that does is it seals up the topic forever, like in a tomb, like in a crypt, where no one will ever believe anything about the secret space program ever again, you see? And it's very, very effective. That goes back to old CIA mind tricks as well, and programs.
What is your opinion on Solar Warden, which was supposed to be the program for secret space prior to the Space Force being announced?
Solar Warden was the one discovered by that young man in Britain, in England, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's an absolutely authentic situation, because he had the proof. He showed the proof, and he had that was being done. That was being done, and he hacked the materials, and he showed what he found. And so, yeah, that was an absolutely authentic situation. And also, that by the way the governments went after him, at that point. That really tells you that his stuff was authentic, and that Solar Warden was absolutely true, and it was absolutely substantial. I mean, it had the stuff, the proof in it. And so, yeah, that was the first real indicators that there was a secret space program, and that it was real. It was real and true. And so that's why the cabal had to then get into gear and cover it up fast.
Do we have bases on the moon and Mars right now?
When you say we, you mean like
humans?
Human beings?
Yeah.
I don't believe we do on the moon, because we have been under prohibitions from going to the moon since 1977, I believe, and that prohibition has held very firmly, who by whatever alien forces were actually on the moon. It appears from the proof that we have had. It appears that there was some kind of alien force on the moon that suddenly restricted all humans from traveling to the moon after, I think it was 77, and that has held tight. So I don't believe we have uh, bases, human bases, on the moon, even to this day. And I don't even believe that. I don't even believe that we're still allowed to travel to the moon, even at this point. Uh, Despite the fact that China and India have made a big show about that they could go up there and all that. But on Mars, I've seen a lot of evidence that we actually do have some kind of human bases on Mars, strangely enough. And one of the reasons for that is because that does not depend on human technology, rocket technology. That depends on these jump platforms that use teleportation technology.
Ah, well, real quick, based on what you said about the moon, you actually confirmed what I've heard for years, that we were told to get off and not come back. So
Oh,
that
absolutely.
And now, also, I've interviewed a few people who talked about going to Mars in these jump rooms, or portals or stargates, whatever people want to call them.
Right, right.
I couple names I'll say. Well, actually, I'll just say one. Everyone else can use your imagination and go through my channel, and I'm sure you probably know who I'm talking about. But one of the names is Corey Good. So I'm sure you've heard of Corey Good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so when he talked about essentially being taken to Mars like in a split second in a through a portal, or there's another person whose name begins with is Andy. His last name starts with a B. I'm not going to say it for personal reasons. But he talked about a jump room right by LAX. And me, Blake, and Brent from Third Phase of Moon went and filmed out there. And of course, everyone told us there is no jump room at that location. I don't think they were lying. And if there really is a jump room in that building, I don't see why they would even know. But is your opinion that there are these portals or jump rooms around this planet that are natural, or are the ones that potentially take us to Mars, are they man-made?
Mm, that's an excellent question. Well, yeah, I do believe that the jump rooms do exist, the jump platforms. I do believe that they exist, uh, and I believe that they're real. Whether they are man-made is another question. I don't know that for sure. They could all be alien technology. It's very possible. But the only thing I know for sure is that they actually do exist and they are being used.
Let me get a couple more questions, and let me announce this. Anybody in the chat, if you have more questions, now's the time to start writing them in, because after I ask my couple, I will go ahead and ask yours until we run out of time, which essentially is any time from now to the next 25 minutes. We're not on a hard clock because I did tell him an hour to an hour and a half. We are at 90 minutes, so we'll go on for a few more minutes. We can go up to 30 more minutes, people. Just I'll leave the questions up to you. So, this question is about your own personal encounters. Can you talk about them without violating your NDA?
Sure, I can. Depend which encounters are they discussing?
Well, let's. What was your first encounter? What year and what were the circumstances around it?
Oh, my first encounter with alien visitors. Is that what
Yes.
you're saying?
Yes.
Sure. That's something that I talk about. Uh, I was, geez, I couldn't even tell you what year it was, but I was 10 years old, and I was in New York City, and that was when my parents took me to a party that was in New York City somewhere. It was a great big hall, and me and a bunch of other kids just got together and ran out. It was about 1 in the morning, and it was way late for us. But we got together and we ran out into the streets, which were pretty much deserted. There were just two tall buildings out there, and the kids were playing kind of rough. Uh, one of the bigger kids, hit me in the stomach. I went down on the sidewalk, and and then one of the kids yelled out, uh, he's really hurt." So they all ran away and ran back down the street back to the rented hall that was continuing the celebration for the adults. And so I stayed out there. I was by myself. I looked up into the sky. It was about 1 in the morning. It was black sky. Couldn't even see any stars. And I looked up between these two tall buildings that were the only things in the area. And I looked up and I saw a black ink cloud. I mean, that's the only way I could describe it. It was like an inky sort of black cloud way up in the sky. Beyond any capability. And then from the bottom of that cloud of ink, which blotted out the stars, I saw this light come out the bottom of this cloud of ink. It came out, and I saw the lights come out, and then I saw this flying saucer thing, and it had lights spinning in the bottom, and it appeared metallic in nature, and it just came down towards me. As I was looking up at it, I was like frozen, and then it hit me with that blue-green spotlight that I have heard many witnesses talk about since then. That green-blue spotlight that just kind of just went through my entire body like it was examining me from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet. And then it went through me. And then two teenage girls appeared on my left. And they were looking up at the sky, looking up at exactly what I was looking at. And they were screaming and trying to hug each other at the same time. And they yelled at me, "Little boy, you better run home because the world might be ending right now." And
Oh, so let me ask you this: okay, when you said they appeared, at first I was wondering if they were non-terrestrial, but based on the reactions, it sounds like they were human. Now,
right,
did you not see them appear because do you think it's
no,
possible that maybe you had missing time?
uh, anything's possible. But I was there in that moment, and I was just totally focused on the vehicle, on the thing up in the sky. So I didn't really know about their, and plus I was in that spotlight as well. So I was not aware of them at all, uh, or any people on the streets. It was abandoned. It was completely abandoned until they yelled out the top of their lungs. And that's when I looked over and I knew that they were there. And they just yelled that out at me. They said, "Little boy, you better run home. The world is ending." And when they yelled that out at me, I kind of, I startled. I mean, I startled back awake, and I stepped back out of that spotlight. I took a step back, and as I did that, the craft reversed course at the exact same moment that I stepped backward. And it reversed course. It went back up into the sky, back up. It was going back up. And those two girls took off. I mean, they were gone. They took off running. And they were gone as this thing just went back up into the ink cloud. It disappeared into that black ink cloud that was up there. And then the ink cloud itself also disappeared. And then I just ran back down the block to the back to the rented hall to get back and tell my parents about what happened.
How you were? They said you were a little boy. How old were you?
10 years old.
And after that spotlight, that greenish light came and was scanning you, after you went home and in the following days and weeks and months, did you notice any effects like blisters on your skin or any enhanced abilities or any sickness like fatigue, or was it you were fine?
I What I noticed was about a week or so later, I had we had an alien visitation to our home. It was almost like that craft took back my resume to the alien visitors, and they said it was okay whatever they found on that spotlight examination that they did, and we had bunch of a bunch of these gray creatures that came into our home at about 3 in the morning one night. And
You
went to
have officially become my new favorite FBI agent, and actually my new favorite of all the people I've interviewed in the federal government, even more
good.
than Bill Binney, the NSA whistleblower prior to Snowden. So I want to thank you for that, because I actually not only do you have the credibility and are really cool and nice, I generally think that you possibly may have been abducted, if not at least having that contact more than once and seeing the gray beings in your home is not
Yeah.
something you would normally hear from a federal officer and someone who has a JD, because not all federal agents have JDs. Usually, if they have college, it's just the bachelor's and then they join. To get your bachelor's and then your JD and then join is, usually, uh, someone like Comey, I would think would be,
Oh, don't mention that
yeah,
name to
I
me,
know. I
please.
didn't want to think of, I couldn't think of anyone out, but yeah, yeah. I'm in your camp. I didn't even want to say his name. Now, I'm going to save the other encounters for our next interview so I can get to these questions, because fortunately a few have piled up. So let me go in order to the last question. The
Rapid fire. Let's shoot them
yeah.
off.
Okay. This is from Anthony. It says, "Will Biden release disclosure?"
Um, Never. Mostly because Biden doesn't know where he is right now. He has no clue.
Amen to that. This question is hard because it's just two words with a question mark. Pyramid Seven. If you could re-ask this as a full question, I maybe if Mr. D'Souza can answer it, great. But if not, if you can re-ask it, I'll get back to you. So this reads,
Words for
Project Horizon question mark.
Project Horizon. I've never heard of that. Don't know
Okay.
what it is.
So, Pyramid, if you could rewrite that, I will re ask it for you. Okay, let me get to the next one. Okay, this is. No, I don't think. One of these disinformation platforms. Well, this is not so much of. I guess it is a question, but Sean McCarthy, 86. So, do you think super soldiers talk could be one of these disinformation information platforms?
I don't know about the actual platform, but I see the super soldiers uh, discuss their material quite a lot, and I tend to not really see any proof in the stuff that they talk about. I don't see the sauce, as we would say on 4chan and other places. So I tend to shy away from the super soldier stuff, basically in general.
I'm with you on that. Jeez, it must have been 8 years ago at this point. I was invited to a super soldier conference in Henderson, Nevada, put on by Lorian Fenton. And I have to say, there was
Oof.
not a single person who told a story but was able to back it up with any evidence. The only evidence
Yeah,
they offered was what they spoke, which, if their character is somewhat flawed, then obviously I had to question it. So I'm with you on that one.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, next question here is this is from Jose Sanchez. Do you know anything about the TR3B, and is it based on ET technology?
I don't believe so. The TR3B is a real thing and it exists, but I don't think it's not a perfect match for the giant black triangles that we saw in Phoenix in 2008, and then again in later, I think it was like 2016. It doesn't match perfectly. It doesn't match perfectly to those giant black triangles. I mean, it doesn't equal them in size, and it doesn't equal them in abilities either. So the TR3Bs, I mean, they're real. They exist, and I think they're still top secret technology, but they're not. They don't explain the giant boomerangs, the giant triangle, black triangles that have appeared in so many places across the United States and that have the ability to move slowly over major cities and then also have the ability to disappear to a little dot on the horizon at another point. So it just doesn't match up.
I'm with you about the Phoenix Lights. That
Mhm.
craft was estimated a mile wide from wingtip to
Exactly.
wingtip, and like it
Exactly.
traveled, like you said, very slow. Now,
Right.
two R3Bs, absolutely. I believe they exist. They have not shown us any videos. Like, for instance, after they announced we had the SR-71, it was just a handful of years after they released the stuff. That had been 35 years, if I'm not mistaken, late 80s or so, or maybe early 90s. So, yes, I would think that we've been working on some craft that
Yeah.
is secret, and I would
Right.
think that is the TR3B, but not a mile wide. That's just
Right.
my opinion. Okay,
Right.
next question from you is, let's see. Um, okay, this is also from Anthony, just username Anthony. Are the gray aliens the future us, forced to live underground due to nuclear war? Time traveling in time to gather our DNA so they can reproduce?
No, they're not. They're absolutely not because they would have given us some indication that that is the case if that had been the case. And many people have had numerous encounters with the gray aliens, the gray beings, and they never really get much feedback from them. They get very little, and I don't believe that the gray aliens have any ability to do anything except carry out menial tasks for their masters, whoever those are.
This next one is from Jose Sanchez, and it's got a little more from the TR3B. It reads, do you know anything about the TR3B Black Manta, and is it part of our secret U.S. Space Force?
It very well could be. It very well could be, and uh, I don't. But what I will tell people like Anthony or Jose is that anybody that tells you that all UFOs are all made by the U.S. government, uh, like sometimes the TR3B people do, they're they either are disinformation or they just don't know what they're talking about. Because regardless of the TR3B status, it does not mean that all UFOs are from the government or from the governments. It just doesn't. There are UFOs that are authentically from alien visitors and from other off planet, from other worlds, basically.
This next one is from Eddie Gomez. It says, what does John think of the CE5 documentary, and can we really do this? Are you familiar with the CE5 documentary?
Yeah, and I'm familiar with Dr. Greer as
Yes,
well,
that's right. That
and his material, and I'm a great admirer of Dr. Greer for a lot of the work that he's done. However, I also have stories that I've collected in my books that indicate that there are many dangers involved with people who will do outreach directly to alien visitors, and that people have to be very careful about what they do. Uh, and Because this mindset of thinking that all alien visitors are good or all alien visitors are bad, or they're both incorrect, both of those approaches, and people need to bear that in mind.
I agree with that, but I will not say it publicly. I'll tell you after, just because he appears on this show often. Real quick, I'm gonna give everybody one quick moment to see if anyone has a final question before I wrap. Let me just give a couple announcements. Remember, folks, on February 16th, Countdown to Disclosure drops on all streaming services, Netflix, Prime, and other. This is a huge documentary that Third Phase of Moon is releasing, and I don't want to tell too much about it. I did play the trailer. It's on my channel. Actually, I even played bits of it here without the sound, and I can tell you that I appear in it with my voice because I'm I wasn't filmed in it. However, one of the interviews that I did about 6 to 9 months ago that you all heard will be in that. It's going to be a fantastic documentary, so pay attention to that. Also, my website, if you've noticed, has gotten redone. I would love to get your opinion on it, and the archives are being uploaded. So please pay attention to that. And unfortunately, one of the streaming softwares that I use, I cannot schedule, which means the only way you all will know when I'm on is literally after I am live. So make sure, if you're subscribed, to have your notifications set for all. If you are not subscribed, please make sure you do and hit the notifications. Also, please take some time and hit the thumbs up and make sure you share this video. Now, in the meantime, let me see if there is any final question for you folks. And I believe okay. This one is from you, man, and we're almost done here. What about William Tompkins? Do you know anything about that, John? Or who he is?
Sure, absolutely. I keep up on all the literature that's done in this area, and William Tompkins' stuff was very interesting, extremely interesting, and very good. And I think people should definitely read his book and see what they can get out of it. It's amazing stories, and it's just a shame that he departed from this mortal coil so soon.
With that being said, like I said, hang by for a quick moment after. If there's a final statement you'd like to say, and after that, tell us where people can find you.
Sure. My final statement for people is that people, we are right now, we are in a race. We are in a race where we are not being told what is really at stake in this race, because we have the deep state, the cabal, that is trying to push us forward towards something that I know as fake alien invasion. And that is what they are working on. That is what these Tic Tac videos are all about. That is what all this top secret section of the U.S. Navy that is putting out this information in conjunction with places like To the Stars Academy and other places as well. They are all part of a giant psychological operation that is meant to manipulate us and to push us there. And this operation includes CNN and Fox News and many other outlets that are all pushing the same narrative. So we need to educate ourselves. We need to listen to people who are voices of reason in this area, people who will tell us what is really going on. And that's why I would like people to find my material at John Desouza at johntamaBooks.com, johntamaBooks.com, or you can just Google John Desouza, and you'll find everything about me, including my books, especially my book, The Extra Dimensionals, where I explain to people what is really going on with alien visitors and how it affects us. And also, I would like people to see my latest documentary, A Thousand Pieces, which is available on Vimeo, on Vimeo.com. And people should use gift code, promo code Desouza Gift for 20% off on that. And that's where they can find me. And I am just really thrilled to have been able to spend a little time on Dr. J Radio Live, because it's awesome stuff.
Amen to that, everybody. I clearly see from some of the comments you really enjoyed this. And like I said, this is not the only interview. I promise I will bring Mr. Desouza back. With that being said, folks, you have a good night, and we will be back on soon. Like I said, just pay attention for when you get the notification. Now, officially, Mr. Desouza and I are